back in 1973, the world pretty much just stopped. Now, this wasn't a war fought with soldiers and tanks, but was something way more essential: oil. And look, this wasn't just about long lines at the gas station. This was a moment that completely redrew the map of global power. It was the moment everyone realized a simple resource could be used as a devastating weapon. So let's just start with a number that sent the entire global economy into a complete tailspin. In just a few months, the price of oil didn't just go up, it absolutely exploded. We're talking nearly 300%. This was a shockwave that started in a war in the Middle East, but ended up hitting every single home, every factory, and every government on the planet. So you've got to ask, right? How could one single commodity cause that much chaos? Well, to get the shock, you have to first understand the addiction. For decades, the developed world, and especially the United States, have been running on incredibly cheap oil. They built an entire way of life on a resource that, frankly, they were losing their grip on. Okay, so this slide right here, it tells a really critical story. By 1970, American oil wells had hit their peak. They just couldn't produce anymore. But did demand slow down? Oh, not a chance. To fill that massive gap, America started importing foreign oil like there was no tomorrow. Some critics at the time called the policy "Drain America First," and you can kind of see the logic. But man, was it dangerous. It created this huge vulnerability, this dependence on producers halfway around the world. And this is where our main character really enters the stage: OPEC. For years, the organization of the petroleum exporting countries was kind of seen as a toothless tiger, often pushed around by the big Western oil companies. But by the early 70s, something had changed. There was a new confidence growing. These nations suddenly realized they weren't just sitting on black goo. They held a switch that could literally turn the global economy on or off. So the stage is set, right? You've got a world absolutely desperate for oil on one side, and a handful of countries that control the flow on the other. All it needed was a spark to turn this whole thing into a full-blown political weapon. And that spark, it came in October 1973. And man, things just escalated with lightning speed. October 6th, the Yom Kippur War breaks out. The US immediately scrambles to help its ally, Israel, authorizing a huge airlift of weapons. The Arab oil producers see this, and just 5 days later, they announce production cuts. But then, boom, October 19th, the real hammer blow. Saudi Arabia's King Faisal, who is personally enraged by the American support for Israel, unleashes the oil weapon and slaps a total embargo on the United States. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly captures the total disconnect at the time. The West was completely dismissive, almost arrogant. When an American reporter publicly taunted the Saudi foreign minister, saying they could just drink their oil, the response was sharp, angry, and honestly prophetic. All right, we will. Yeah, this was not a bluff. The rules of the game had just changed. So what was the final straw for King Faisal? It all comes down to this number. President Nixon didn't just ask Congress for a little aid. He asked for a staggering $2.2 billion military aid package for Israel. To the king, this wasn't just support. It was America taking a massive, undeniable side in the conflict, and it triggered a response of equal force. All right, so that decision by the king, it didn't just create ripples. No, this was a tsunami that hit the entire world. The economic and social shock was immediate, it was profound, and it was felt by absolutely everyone. So the markets, of course, just panicked. And you can see it here. The price of a barrel of oil, which had been sitting around $3 forever, just quadrupled. Boom, up to $12 almost overnight. I mean, the entire financial system of the world was thrown into complete and utter chaos. And for just, regular people, the crisis hit home, and it hit hard. I mean, we're talking about endless lines at the gas pump, sometimes stretching for miles. Governments had to start rationing gas based on whether your license plate ended in an odd or even number. The US created a national 55-mile-per-hour speed limit to save fuel. Some states even banned Christmas lights. It was a total disruption of daily life, with these government campaigns everywhere pleading, "Don't be foolish." Just in the US alone, the average price for a gallon of gas shot up by 43% in less than a year. For a country and a culture built entirely around the car, this was a massive gut punch. And if you want to know just how desperate things got at the very highest levels, listen to this. This is a real quote from a private meeting with Henry Kissinger, the US Secretary of State. I mean, that is a raw, shocking look behind the curtain. It shows you just how powerless the world's biggest superpower felt, and the kind of extreme, unthinkable options they were actually talking about. You hear that desperation in Kissinger's voice? That's the sound of an old world order just crumbling. Now, the embargo itself was lifted in March of '74, but it was too late. The world had changed forever. The aftershocks from those 5 months created the energy and political realities that we are all still living with today. And you don't have to look far to see the legacy. I mean, just look at the cars we drive. The crisis was the death knell for the big American gas guzzler. All of a sudden, fuel efficiency wasn't just some niche idea. It was everything. People started flocking to smaller, more efficient cars, mostly from Japan. And this one shift completely remade the global auto industry. And just like that, decades of Detroit's dominance started to crumble. And really, the legacy is everywhere you look. Economic power shifted in a huge way. Oil exporting nations were suddenly flooded with what they called petrodollars. We're talking hundreds of billions. The US, vowing to never be that vulnerable again, created the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and a whole new Department of Energy. And maybe most importantly, the oil weapon was now a proven concept, a tool of geopolitics that's still very much in play today. So, all of this, the 1973 crisis, forced this painful but necessary reckoning with our energy reality, and it leaves us with a really critical and maybe even an uncomfortable question, right? 50 years later, after all the changes and new technologies, just how secure are we from the next big energy shock? If you liked this explainer, be sure to like and subscribe to Decode Today. Follow us for more detailed journeys into the events that shaped our world.